The moment a spirit is summoned into the boundless stream of existence, it is inherently imbued with an initial, sacred purpose, an existential directive that often remains profoundly hidden beneath the veil of material life. According to the foundational principles of spiritual philosophy, it is an absolute truth that no human soul is brought forth into the world without a reason, without a mission carefully laid out by the supreme intelligence that governs all things. Life in all its manifestations, whether marked by intense brevity, prolonged anguish, or a confusing labyrinth of events, is invariably a profoundly orchestrated, intelligently directed experience. This meticulously planned journey is dedicated entirely to the essential progress, refinement, and eventual glorification of the individual spirit that temporarily inhabits the physical form. We must first accept the premise that behind the mystery of every birth lies a powerful, invisible, and enduring spiritual intention, an unseen logic that underpins every step we take, dictates every crucial encounter, and shapes every trial we must undergo. The common human perspective often limits the scope of life to a simplistic sequence, a need to survive, to labor, to find fleeting companionship, and ultimately, to decay. However, from the elevated perspective of the spiritual realm, this reductionist view fails entirely to grasp the true magnitude of our cosmic residency. It reduces a grand, immortal undertaking to a mere biological cycle, mistaking the tool for the true agent. The corporeal body is simply a temporary and specialized instrument, a vessel for interaction with the lower density of matter, while the true, ongoing, and vital journey belongs exclusively to the consciousness, the imperishable core of the soul. Understanding this distinction is the genesis of all true wisdom, for it shifts the focus from the transient needs of the physical form to the eternal necessities of the spirit, positioning us as celestial wayfarers temporarily paused in this dense environment. This terrestrial residence is a necessary stopover, a place of intense learning and purification, where the spirit, through the friction of matter, acquires the essential qualities needed for its ultimate advancement toward perfection and its reintegration into the harmonious fabric of universal law, ensuring that the initial divine impulse for existence is ultimately and completely fulfilled, regardless of the apparent chaos we observe in the temporal world. We are all, in essence, tireless celestial travelers engaged in an eternal cycle of progressive education, willingly choosing to descend into the conditions of Earth's atmosphere repeatedly across the epochs of time. Each new incarnation is a deliberately chosen opportunity, serving as a fresh academic term in the grand school of universal learning, bestowing upon us a new identity, a new set of targeted lessons, and an unparalleled opportunity to advance further toward the supreme pure light of creation. To even begin to comprehend the multifaceted reasons for our current residency on Earth, we must fundamentally recognize and accept that absolute nothingness occurs by accident within the cosmos. The concept of pure chance is, philosophically speaking, a hollow utterance, a term invented by those whose sensory perceptions are too dull or limited to recognize the intricate, pervasive, and subtle laws of order that maintain the vast equilibrium of the universe. Every single phenomenon we experience, from the deepest elation that warms our innermost being to the searing sorrow that forces a profound internal reconstruction, is in complete obedience to an underlying spiritual necessity. This means that the entire tapestry of our life, the distinct environment we inhabit, the people whose paths intersect with ours, the victories we celebrate, the hardships we endure, and the physical limitations we face, is not a collection of random rewards or capricious penalties. Instead, these are all integrated elements of a vast coherent plan, a personal curriculum drafted by our own consciousness with the counsel of higher spiritual guides before we ever drew our first breath in this life. The spirit, being immortal and having a full recognition of its imperfections, knowingly accepts specific difficult challenges which it judges as precisely capable of driving its subsequent evolution. Sometimes this involves selecting a particularly challenging familial environment, accepting a body with intrinsic limitations, or being born into a socially demanding situation purely because those very circumstances hold the precise, necessary friction and lessons required for its immediate mandated growth. The spiritual understanding of existence categorically rejects the possibility of true coincidence, asserting instead the constant, undeniable operation of a perfect inherent system of cause and effect, often referred to as the law of justice or the law of rebalancing. This law is not punitive in nature but pedagogical. It is designed not to exact revenge, but to restore equilibrium and provide the necessary conditions for correction and advancement. Every thought we harbor, every word we speak, and every action we execute sends a vibration into the cosmic field, and these energies eventually return to us, often across the span of multiple lifetimes, in the form of specific circumstances or encounters. Therefore, the seemingly random injustices or moments of unexpected fortune that color our existence are actually delayed responses to previous spiritual investments or moral debts. The hardships we face are not divine punishments arbitrarily assigned. They are, more accurately, the necessary expirations or trials required to purify the spirit of its deep-seated imperfections, such as pride, envy, or selfishness. It is the spirit itself, in its moment of pre-incarnational clarity and lucidity, that actively cooperates in selecting the conditions of its subsequent life, knowing precisely which moral flaws it must counteract or which accumulated debts it must settle. The challenges are specifically tailored, like a customized physical therapy regimen for a specific ailment, to target and strengthen the weakest areas of the soul's character. The concept of an unmerited, undeserved suffering is alien to this doctrine. Everything that touches our life, down to the smallest detail, is ultimately linked to a spiritual need or a moral consequence, ensuring that the universe remains an arena of absolute, meticulous, and perfect justice, governed entirely by wisdom and love, leaving no room for the caprice of chance. The planet Earth, within the vast hierarchy of inhabited worlds, occupies a specific and necessary position. It is classified as a world of trials and expiations. This designation immediately informs us that its primary function is not one of serene repose or perfected happiness, but rather a demanding, dynamic place of hard spiritual labor, a workshop, a forging ground, or a rigorous schoolhouse where raw spiritual material is refined into luminous character. This environment is characterized by the predominance of struggle, the coexistence of good and evil, and the necessity of pain as a critical agent of transformation. Unlike worlds considered happy or regenerated, where the law of love already predominates and evolution occurs through pure inspiration and knowledge, Earth still requires the resistance of matter to stimulate the spirit's latent virtues. It is not the path of least resistance that awakens the soul's latent potential, but the immense, persistent spiritual friction it encounters when it endeavors to rise above its material inclinations. The greater the obstacle placed before the spirit, the more powerful and refined the spirit becomes in its successful confrontation and overcoming of that challenge. This workshop setting ensures that the lessons are highly practical and deeply embodied. For instance, true compassion cannot be learned theoretically. It must be exercised in the presence of real suffering. Patience is not developed in isolation, but is forged in the midst of provocation and delay. Humility is only genuinely acquired when pride is repeatedly challenged and humbled by failure. The totality of earthly life, therefore, operates as an intensive training curriculum, where all the surrounding elements, from the beauty of nature to the intensity of social conflict, serve a singular, focused purpose: the continuous moral and intellectual enhancement of the immortal essence dwelling within us, preparing it for higher spheres of existence where trials are no longer necessary. One of the most profound and essential aspects of the incarnational process is the imposition of the veil of forgetfulness, a temporary spiritual amnesia regarding our past lives and the deliberate commitments we made prior to our birth. While this often seems frustrating to the incarnated individual seeking answers, spiritual philosophy teaches that this forgetfulness is not a deficiency, but a powerful act of divine mercy and wisdom. Without this protective shroud, it would be utterly impossible to live with the psychological freedom and the moral spontaneity that life in the material world demands. Imagine the paralyzing weight of remembering every error committed across hundreds of lives, the intense shame, the persistent attachments, and the complex web of interconnected debts, owed to almost every person we meet. If we remembered our triumphs, our ego might become inflated beyond control, leading to spiritual stagnation through excessive vanity. The temporary forgetting allows the spirit to focus entirely on the present moment, on the immediate lessons at hand, ensuring that any good deed performed or any vice overcome carries genuine, unadulterated merit. The spirit, though forgetting the details of the past, remains guided by its inherent moral tendencies, which are the silent echoes of its past accomplishments and lingering imperfections. These tendencies, a natural bent toward generosity, or perhaps a persistent struggle with envy or irritation, are the true, reliable indicators of the areas that still require refinement. They serve as the compass pointing the soul toward the specific, necessary superations. This process ensures that we begin anew, unburdened by the conscious weight of ancient guilt, but still propelled toward resolution by the inner workings of our spiritual nature, offering the most fertile ground for the exercise of pure, authentic free will in our current choices. The spiritual journey through physical existence is accurately described as a mirror, a perfect reflector of the inner landscape of the spirit. Everything that we encounter in the external world is a direct, precise reflection of the unresolved spiritual conflicts, the dormant virtues, or the lingering moral imperfections that we carry deep within our own being. Every difficult relationship, every instance of devastating loss, and even every ephemeral joy holds a deeply encrypted spiritual message intended solely for us. The painful situations we seem to encounter repeatedly, the specific type of emotional betrayal, the constant financial difficulty, or the recurring professional failure are not external persecutions, but are echoes of lessons the spirit has not yet fully assimilated and resolved. They are personalized invitations to transcend an old pattern of thinking or behaving. What is frequently termed suffering is, in its spiritual definition, merely the intense resistance of the soul facing a necessary lesson it refuses to embrace, or a moral truth it stubbornly declines to accept. When the spirit achieves this fundamental recognition, the understanding that the problem is not out there but in here, the pain instantaneously transforms its nature, moving from despair and affliction to a catalyst for wisdom and clarity. At this point, the desperate search for external happiness or the frantic effort to control others ceases, and the true meaning of existence emerges. We stop seeing life as a chain of random, unfair events and begin to perceive the intricate, intelligent thread that purposefully weaves all occurrences together, revealing that the true objective is not to find fleeting external pleasures, but to attain a profound, unshakable inner harmony that is birthed from a deep and honest understanding of the self. The spiritual understanding of existence presents us as perpetual learners, engaged in a process of sequential lives, each one a crucial chapter in the grand, ongoing saga of continuous moral and intellectual betterment. We are, by design, apprentices of eternity, spirits progressing slowly but surely toward a state of ultimate perfection, much like students ascending through a vast series of academic grades. This material life is just one grade, a necessary intensive period of practical training. Before each new incarnation, the spirit, often with the guidance of more advanced entities, meticulously maps out the trials and circumstances of the coming life. This plan is focused on rectifying past moral failings, neutralizing long-standing emotional debts, and deliberately cultivating essential virtues. The concept is radically different from viewing reincarnation as a punishment. Rather, it is viewed as an extraordinary and invaluable blessing, a recurring opportunity for progress that would be impossible to achieve in the less dense spiritual sphere. The spiritual world is a realm of thought and intention, where acting out and truly testing one's virtues is immensely difficult. Only through contact with the tangible friction and the profound imperfections inherent in the material world can the spirit truly refine its character, polishing the rough edges of its lower passions. Suffering, limitation, and frustration are therefore not the marks of divine wrath, but the essential tools of this spiritual workshop, designed to sculpt the soul into a more perfect and luminous form, ensuring that evolution is not only possible, but constantly in motion. Even if it appears stagnant over a single lifetime, the central necessity of reincarnation into the material realm lies in the absolute requirement for the spirit to test itself in the crucible of dense matter. It is a deceptively simple matter to profess virtue when one is dwelling in the tranquility of the spiritual world, far removed from provocation, temptation, and need. It is easy to philosophize about patience when nothing is delayed, or to advocate generosity when one faces no personal privation, or to discuss humility when no one challenges one's pride. But the genuine transformative test occurs precisely in the raw, messy, and challenging environment of human interaction. The life on earth forces the spirit to prove the theoretical lessons it has accumulated. The confrontation with error, the persistence of pain, and the pervasive reality of imperfection compel the soul to reveal its true, unvarnished nature. The incarnation is the final examination that determines whether the knowledge acquired in theory can be successfully and consistently applied in daily practice. Every spirit brings into its material life specific moral inclinations and tendencies which clearly indicate the areas requiring the most urgent attention. The naturally impatient person is incarnated to master calmness. The soul, dominated by envy, is placed in situations demanding contentment. The individual who habitually adopts the mantle of victimhood is brought back to discover and harness the immense, untapped inner strength they possess. Life, in its infinite wisdom, never errs in the syllabus it delivers. If a specific challenging situation repeats itself relentlessly, it is an undeniable sign that the underlying spiritual lesson has not yet been fully grasped, accepted, and embodied. The law of spiritual progress makes it clear that no soul achieves true evolution in isolation. The entire human project is an intrinsically collective endeavor. Every existence is intricately and perpetually intertwined with the destinies of countless other spirits, forming a complex, dynamic web of mutual experience where the progress of each individual inherently contributes to the well-being and advancement of the others. We are simultaneously apprentices and active co-workers in the grand divine plan. Sometimes, a soul's role is to act as a profound spiritual catalyst, awakening the capacity for selfless love in another who has become cynical. At other times, a spirit might, through a painful action, unknowingly serve as the instrument to provoke necessary changes in a third party's life, fulfilling a larger design without ever being consciously aware of its crucial function. Consequently, even those individuals who manifest as the most significant obstacles, irritations, or sources of pain in our lives may in fact be essential, though often disguised, spiritual instructors who are fulfilling ancient commitments of mutual aid and growth. Allan Kardec taught that Earth in its current state is still a world of trials and expiations, meaning that all of us are here in some capacity, settling past moral accounts and subjecting our newly acquired virtues to rigorous examination. However, as humanity collectively progresses and elevates its moral condition, the planet itself will undergo a spiritual transformation, graduating to a world of regeneration, where love gradually and consistently replaces pain as the primary catalyst for further evolution, making clear that the motivation for our presence is not just self-improvement, but contributing to the collective ascent. The ultimate overarching and most crucial directive of the spiritual journey on Earth is concentrated into one transcendent concept: the absolute necessity of learning how to love. This is not merely romantic affection or familial bond, but the highest expression of universal charity, loving in a fully conscious, deeply patient, and completely unattached way. It means finding the spiritual capacity to love actively, even when that affection is vehemently rejected, even when the circumstances of life seem acutely unfair, and even when the recipient of our care fails entirely to understand the purity of the intention. It is this elevated quality of love, this unconditional charity, that serves as the supreme lever for the spirit's elevation, bringing it into perfect, resonant harmony with the immutable laws of universal order. Every single element of the earthly experience, the acute pain of loss, the transient nature of joy, the relentless cycle of hope and disappointment, exists solely to drive us toward this ultimate spiritual comprehension. As the spirit matures across its many lifetimes, it begins to realize with increasing clarity that the final lasting meaning of its life is not external, found in achievements, titles, or transient pleasures, but resides internally, in the quiet, immense capacity to give and receive pure affection. True happiness, as taught in spiritual philosophy, does not belong to this material world, not because the earth is inherently a place of condemnation, but because the spirit, still heavily clothed in selfishness and pride, has not yet learned to live in perfect alignment with the divine laws, with love being the most essential and powerful of these laws. The spiritual masters affirm that egoism and its close cousin pride are the twin, persistent roots from which virtually all moral imperfections and human suffering spring. Egoism isolates the soul, persuading the individual that their personal pain is the most important, their self-interest is the only consideration, and their life is entirely independent of the well-being of the whole. So long as egoism remains the governing principle of a person's choices, the spirit is effectively held captive in a state of self-imposed spiritual blindness, incapable of perceiving the higher meaning behind its existence. It is for this precise reason that life in its infinite corrective wisdom frequently contradicts our personal will, actively seeking to humble our pride and create vital openings through which the light of humility and selflessness can finally penetrate. There are moments when the material life seems to collapse entirely, and it is precisely in these times of severe trial that the spirit experiences its most accelerated growth. When the person loses what they falsely deemed essential, they are forced to discover what is truly invaluable and permanent within. Allan Kardec established a simple yet profound moral standard. The wise person is the one who diligently examines and meticulously works on their own failings before ever presuming to point out the shortcomings of others. This disciplined, honest internal scrutiny, though painful and challenging initially, is the sole pathway that reveals the true, unadulterated meaning of existence. As long as a person seeks to assign blame and find faults outside themselves, they remain spiritually constrained by ignorance. But by turning the focus inward, they realize that the conflicts they grapple with in the external world are merely magnified reflections of the conflicts that still rage unresolved within the confines of their own heart, thereby achieving self-knowledge, the precursor to all moral freedom and true spiritual vision. Upon the eventual culmination of all earthly striving and searching, the spirit comes to the profound realization that the true core reason for its presence on earth was never something hidden in the distant promise of a future reward, but was in fact perpetually available and actively present in every single instant, lived with intention, awareness, and consciousness. The physical life is not intended to be an unsolvable enigma requiring complex decoding. It is a meticulously designed pathway that must be traversed moment by moment with an ever-awakening and receptive heart. The teachings emphasize that the mission of the incarnate spirits does not demand only grand, globally recognized achievements, but primarily requires the silent, persistent effort to effect small, consistent moral improvements each day, the commitment to making one's immediate sphere of influence slightly more just, more compassionate, and more illuminated by goodness. This personal daily transformation is the universal mission shared by all souls, regardless of their position, background, or current level of development. Over the course of countless spiritual ages, the soul gradually perceives that genuine spiritual evolution does not necessitate the abandonment of the material world, but rather requires the diligent sanctification of ordinary life. The honest performance of one's work, the compassionate care given to family, the patience shown toward those who err, and the humble support offered to those who suffer. All these mundane activities constitute the core of the spiritual exercise. Every compassionate gesture becomes an act of prayer, and every effort toward justice becomes a form of worship. Thus, spirituality ceases to be a distant, abstract pursuit and becomes the immediate, tangible fabric of daily existence, saturating every small action with immense, divine significance. When the physical body is finally laid to rest, the spirit returns to its celestial home, carrying with it only the indelible impressions of what it learned, what it loved, and the light it managed to generate through its conduct. The true legacy is not what was acquired, but the measure of love and peace cultivated in the soul, providing eternal gratitude for the opportunity to have learned, to have loved, and to have evolved on the demanding, yet infinitely beneficial stage of earth.